Right here, we have a lot of mayflies. A big mayfly hatch just happened. Man, it's crazy. When that happens, those bass get up there. A lot of times, those bluegill feed on the mayflies. The bass are gonna feed on the bluegills and the mayflies. It could be some really good shallow water fishing. You can see, actually, I've seen quite a few bluegill on these rocks up there super shallow, just looking, waiting for one of those guys to drop in. You would think it's really interesting how just a bug hatch, you know, you hear about it all up north, but really can be a huge player in getting fish to migrate shallow for a little bit throughout the summer months. You know, this is a big activation at the base of the food chain that really just causes a big feeding throughout. There's one right there on the dang camera. I mean, that's exactly what, they're everywhere. It could also cause for some tough fishing too, but a lot of times they're at least gonna be up there. There's one. All right, he's up there. Post spawner. There you go. Little post spawner. Up there, either chomping on the mayflies or trying to look for a few bluegill. One thing you're gonna notice is I'm really covering a lot of water. Just because there's mayflies in the area doesn't mean there's gonna be bass all over the place. So you're gonna have to cover a lot of water to find a group of fish that's really keen in on these things. So I mean, I'll put the trolling motor right now, it's on 10. And this is the way I like to fish when I'm shallow in the summertime. It's a lot of dead water, but when you find them, most of the times what it seems to me is you'll find a little stretch of bank, a 50-yard stretch where those fish are really keen in on whether it might be bluegill or it is the mayfly hatch. That can be the deal. So don't be afraid of putting that trolling motor down and covering water. This bank, whole bank right here, I mean, I might go a mile, but I might find that one little stretch. There's a few big ones up there. And if I'm practicing for a tournament, you know, and I get a couple bites, you know, I'll make sure to roll my hooks in because, you know, shallow water fish are not gonna really replenish that great. So I wanna make sure that if I am practicing for a tournament, then I don't hook those fish so I can hopefully catch them in the tournament. I'm gonna catch them. Ooh, where is that? Oh, he got me hung up. There we go, that's the big thing right there. Being around a little bit of that heavier cover, having braid, straight braid. I will most of the time set it up with a little leader right there, a little mono leader, but when you're in a hurry, just tie a little loop knot. Gotta be a fish like that. All right, buddy. Looking for your big brother. Let's go. Normally when the main primary pattern is fishing offshore, I mean, there's fish that live shallow year round, there's fish that'll migrate shallow, you know, as these bug hatches happen, as the bluegill spawn goes down. There's normally not a lot of them that do it, but it's sometimes the better quality fish. And the thing about that is, you know, there's lots of banks out there. Lots of banks to choose from, but the ones that I'm looking for are normally the ones that have a little bit of cover, like this willow grass or undercut banks, or, you know, a little bit steeper, you know, contours get a little steeper next to the banks to where those fish can really set up on those places and ambush the bluegill or whatever they might be eating. So that's something that's really important when selecting a bank. Not all banks are created equal, and a lot of times it's just trial and error. You'll figure out, like, by going down the bank, like, wow, okay, they're on the flatter stuff or they're on the steeper stuff. That's a lot of times why I like to just stay on that trolling motor and cover a lot of water, because you'll figure it out as you go. So bait selection is very key for this presentation, and this technique is, there's, you know, a lot of topwaters out there, plopping style baits, poppers, walkers. You know, this particular bait for me is one of my favorites when it's around targets. Any kind of target, hence the name cover pop. You know, anytime when I'm fishing around laydown trees or around grass or trying to roll cast up there shallower and this fish around that isolated cover, this is when I'm really wanting to pick this bait up. And it's sort of a hybrid, if you will. It's a popper style bait, but it's also a walking style bait. And the big thing with this is, number one, castability, being able to cast a bait. You want something that's gonna cast fairly well. You want something that can harbor and can have bigger hooks, because this is a big fish technique. You know, you're gonna get some big bites throughout the day, and if you have a smaller hook, if you're throwing, you know, 2 number 6s on your topwater popper, you're gonna lose a few big ones throughout the day. Like right here, I have a short shank number 2 VMC hybrid hook, treble hook, and a nice little feather right there, size number 2. I mean, not a lot of popper style baits can actually handle that big of hardware and still have the good action. So for me, that's a big reason in selecting this particular bait right here.
Great, and then
Little, got something that what the bass are eating. Okay, this right here is exactly what these fish are up here probably eating, which is exactly the size. That's the food chain right there. Those little bluegills, pumpkin seeds are up there shallow eating on these little mayflies, and the bass are eating them. You know, little bite size, and look at that little cover pop. Really about the same size, you know, and that's exactly what, I mean, it's a really good representation of what's going on up there on the bank and what the bass are targeting. For the guy who just has a John bow, this is, I mean, a great technique. You don't need the fancy electronics to be able to go up here on the bank and target some of the biggest fish you can catch on a lot of these lakes. They live shallow year round. They're bluegill eaters, they're mayfly eaters, you know, and that's what's so important about this particular technique is it doesn't get a lot of pressure, and if you have to cover a lot of bank, but really anybody can do it. The only thing you gotta make sure you have is a good set of batteries.